Banks in all countries at the moment have been given the privilege to create the money supply and allocate the money as they see fit. Now, over time, of course, this accumulation of credit allocation decisions by banks will shape the economy.
Right.
Now, despite this crucial role and this long-term impact on the economic landscape, banks weren't told, when they were given this privilege to create and allocate the money supply, now go out and do this wisely. They weren't told to do that, and of course what they've been doing is really just look after their own interests.
Right.
As it turns out, they can't even look after themselves. Just look at the banking crisis. So this just shows the great need for banks to receive help from the government in making sure that what they do is good for the banking system in the long run, is sustainable, and most importantly, is good for the economy. Cost in terms of doing due diligence and credit analysis of a small firm that wants a £20,000 loan
Right.
is about the same as for a large firm that wants a £200 million loan.
Right.
But, of course, if you focus only on the big projects, you're neglecting something in the economy. The economy will become much more centralized. The big banks deal mainly with the big firms. And, of course, the local economy, regional growth will be neglected.
Right.
And small firms and also startup firms have a very hard time getting funding. And of course, because each bank is smaller, it's quite happy, in fact, needs to deal with small customers. And therefore you get a much more diverse economy where local craftsmanship, medium-sized firms, family-owned firms get the support from their banks that they need in the local economy. The two types of banks that make up for this majority of the local economy are basically the credit unions and local municipality-owned or local city-owned or local district publicly owned banks.
Right.
So we've got local publicly owned banks and local credit unions, cooperative banks owned by their members and headquartered locally. The credit unions account for around 30% of banking in Germany, and the local government-owned banks account for around 40%. So in total 70% is accounted for by these local banks.
Right.
And of course, that creates a completely different dynamics, and it goes back to the point that your banking system will ultimately shape your economy. Here is a banking system in Germany where it's the local needs that will be listened to, and the local bank in a local small town, because it's headquartered there, can make the decisions.
Right.
Here, these locally headquartered banks, they're not interested in the speculative credit very much, because that's particularly attractive to the large banks.
Right.
Whereas the local banks want to lend locally, and they're not very much interested in investing in, say, credit derivatives based on US subprime or some other foreign,
Right.
financial instruments.
Right.